On Blackflint, there were 100 ways to kill a person, and only one of them required a body. Kai had learned the loud ways first, the duel, the killing curse of cold blue fire, the thing the reading glass had been built to do. Those were the deaths the island sang about, the deaths that left ash on the stone and grief in the air, the deaths a boy with a hungry mark could see coming and reach out and unmake. It was the quiet ways that frightened him now, because there was a death that left no body, a death made of signatures and seals and the patient machinery of law, a death that could be voted on by people who would go home afterward and sleep soundly, certain their hands were clean, a death where the weapon was a marriage, or a debt, or a clause at the bottom of a page, and the corpse was not a person at all but a future, the slow strangling of who a person might have been, until what was left standing wore their face and answered to their name and belonged entirely to someone else. That was the death the council was preparing for Kai, and the terrible genius of it was that they were going to call it a rescue. Commander Thrace summoned Kai to the Blue Armory 3 days after the envoy landed, and she did him the courtesy, and it was a courtesy, in its hard way, of not pretending it was anything but what it was. "Sit, soldier," she said, and he sat, among the racked weapons and the banners of the soldier house, and she stood across from him with her scarred brow and her iron-grey hair and her flat soldier's honesty, and she told him she had come to save his life by taking it. "The council is going to move on you," Thrace said. "I'll not insult you by pretending otherwise. Sale has the lesser houses. He'll have Saith within the week. Old debts. You needn't know the details. The arrival of that ship has frightened them all badly enough that the deadlock won't hold. Soon there will be a quorum, and a quorum can do anything. And what this quorum wants to do is end you before your charming cousins across the sea can make use of you." She folded her arms. "I am offering you the only door out of that room, and I'll tell you plainly that it is not a door you'll enjoy walking through." "Say it," Kai said. "There is an old law," Thrace said. "Older than the council, near as old as the houses themselves, the binding of wards. When a house produces a child whose power is too great or too dangerous to stand alone, an unstable talent, a danger to themselves and others, that child may be bound to a greater house by a magic of oath and blood, which makes their power answerable to the head of that house. A guardianship. The child keeps their life, their name, their gift. But the gift may only be used at the word of their warden. It is, in plain terms, a leash." She held his eyes without flinching, which Kai respected even as his stomach turned. "I am proposing that you be bound to House Varn, to me, that you become, in the eyes of the law, a danger that has been responsibly contained, and therefore a danger the council has no grounds to end." "You're proposing to own me?" Kai said. "I'm proposing to own your gift," Thrace corrected. "There's a difference, though I'll grant it won't feel like much of one from where you sit. You'd keep yourself, your house, your friends. You'd simply not be able to unmake so much as a candle without my leave." She let that sit. "And in exchange, you'd be alive and protected by the full weight of the strongest martial house on this island, and the council could not touch you, because you would no longer be an unbound danger. You'd be Varn's problem, and Varn protects its problems. We're funny that way." Shikai took the proposal back to the hall of his dead house and laid it out, and watched his small government react. Date was appalled. "It's slavery," he said, with the bluntness of a man who had been no crown his whole life and knew exactly what it was to have his choices made by his betters. Dressed in nicer words, they want to put a collar on you and call it a rescue. Yes, Wren said, they do. And the worst of it is that Thrace probably means it kindly. That's the thing about Thrace. She's not lying. She really would protect you. She'd protect you the way you protect a sword. Oiled, sharp, locked in the armory and brought out only when she has something that needs cutting. She was pacing again, the way she did when the board was complicated. The question isn't whether she means it. She does. The question is what happens the first time what you want and what Varn wants point in different directions. Because they will. And on that day, you'll learn that a leash held kindly is still a leash. But it's a leash that keeps me alive, Kai said. Isn't it? You said it yourself. They'll move on me lawfully, and I have no defense against the law. This is a defense. This is the only defense anyone's offered. It's a defense that ends with you being a weapon in someone else's hand, Wren said. Which is exactly where the remakers want you to, except they'll be kinder about it and call it family. Have you noticed that, Kai? Have you noticed that every single person on this island and across the sea is offering you the same thing in different wrapping? Thrace offers you a leash and calls it protection. Vess offers you a leash and calls it belonging. Sail offers you a grave and calls it safety. They've all looked at the most dangerous thing in 300 years and reached the same conclusion. It cannot be allowed to choose for itself. She stopped, and her voice dropped. And the only person on this whole rock who's offering you the right to choose at all is standing in an empty room with no army and no house and no power but the truth, which is me. So forgive me if I'm a little insistent that you not put on the collar. That night in the Blue Armory, Commander Thrace sat alone and did something she would have denied doing if anyone had asked. She doubted. Thrace was not a woman much given to doubt. Doubt was a luxury, and she had been a soldier since she was younger than the Ash Boy was now, and soldiers who indulged in luxuries tended to die of them. She had built her whole life on a single hard principle, which was that the strength of the house was the only thing that kept the dark at bay, and that everything, every person, every law, every mercy and every cruelty was to be weighed on that one scale and no other. By that scale, binding the boy was simple arithmetic. A weapon that could unmake a sail shield, unmake the killing curse, unmake the oldest machine on the island. Such a weapon, held by Varn, would make Varn unassailable for a generation. And the alternative was letting that weapon fall to Sail's grave, or Vess's ship, and either way out of Varn's hand. The arithmetic was not difficult. Bind the boy. Hold the weapon. Keep the house strong. She had done harder things for thinner reasons, and yet she kept thinking about the way he'd said it. You're proposing to own me. Not afraid. Not pleading. Just naming the thing, flatly, the way she herself named things. The way a soldier names a wound so it can be treated. There had been something in it that she recognized, and that recognition was the doubt, and she did not like it. Because Thrace had been bound once. Long ago, before the scar, before the command, a young talent in a lesser house, bound to Varn by this very law, her gift made answerable to a warden who had used it well, and used it often and never once, not in all the years, asked her what she wanted. She had risen. She had become Varn herself, in time by being the best weapon the house had ever held. She had told herself it was a good life. She mostly believed it, but she remembered still the particular silence of a person whose choices are made by someone else. And she had heard that silence today, in a boy in an empty hall, and she had been the one offering to put it on him. "It keeps him alive," she said aloud, to the empty armory, to the racked weapons and the banners. A live weapon in a cage is better than a dead one in the ground. That's not cruelty, that's arithmetic. The armory did not answer. The weapons did not answer. And Thrace sat with her doubt a while longer. And then she did what she always did with doubt, which was to set it down where it could not slow her hand. And she began to draft the binding. Wren came through the window near midnight, and Kai knew from her face that she had found something, and that it was bad. "I've been in the listening galleries," she said without preamble. "The ones above the council chamber. My old house built them 300 years ago, and never told anyone. Which is exactly the sort of thing my old house does." She sat on the table, but she did not swing her boot, and the stillness frightened him more than pacing would have. "I heard Sail and the head of Saith alone, speaking freely, the way people only speak when they're certain no one's listening." She looked at him. "Kai, they know what the remakers are. They know everything I learned from the trader and more. They've known for days." Kai frowned. "Then why haven't they said? If they know the thing across the sea is a nation of tyrants who hollow out their own people, why hasn't Sail stood up in council and used it? It's exactly the fear he needs to break the deadlock." "Because he's saving it," Wren said softly. "That's the part that frightened me, Kai. He's not afraid of the remakers. He's grateful for them. He worked it out the same night they landed, that a second Ash, a worse Ash, an Ash you can't deny, is the best thing that ever happened to his cause. He doesn't want to scare the council away from the remakers. He wants to scare them toward you, toward needing you, toward the binding." She drew a breath. "His plan isn't to warn the island about the thing across the sea. His plan is to let the island get just frightened enough of the remakers to agree they need a weapon to face them, and then to make sure that weapon is collared, controlled, and disposable. You. He wants the council to bind you not as a danger, but as a defense. To make you their shield against your own family. And then, when the remakers are dealt with, one way or another." "Then they unmake the shield," Kai said, "once it's served its purpose." "Once it's served its purpose," Wren agreed. "He even said it, almost those words. A weapon is only ever lent, never given, always, in the end, taken back." She held his eyes. "He's not trying to stop the binding, Kai. He's counting on it. Thrace thinks she's saving you from Sail. Sail's letting her, because a bound weapon is exactly what he needs you to be before he ends you. They think they're enemies over you. They're not. They're a vice, and you're the thing between the jaws, and every door anyone's offered you walks you deeper into it." There was a new keeper of the glass. After Wren died, after the old man broke his silence and paid for it, the council had needed someone to read the marks of children, and they had found a young woman named Sarah, barely past her own schooling, with the rare gift for reading the deep glass that the office required. She had taken the post because it was a great honor for someone of her modest house, and because no one had told her, when she took it, that the last keeper had died for what he knew. She came to Kai in the night, which took more courage than he understood at first. Because for a keeper of the glass to be seen near the 8th crown was to invite exactly the kind of accident that had found Pell on the stair. I read the records, she said without preamble, standing just inside the door of the hall as though ready to flee. Wren's records. When I took the office, I inherited his books, and most of them are what you'd expect. 60 years of readings, marks, and houses, the ordinary business of the glass. But there's a hidden ledger, coded. It took me weeks to understand it. She swallowed. It's about your house, the 8th. He'd been collecting it his whole life. Every reference, every fragment, everything the 7 houses try to erase about the ash. He knew, my lord. Long before you came, he spent 60 years quietly gathering the truth the council spent 300 years burying, and he hid it in a cipher, and he died before he could give it to anyone. She held out a small book. I think he was waiting for you. I think he always knew an ash would come back, and he wanted there to be a record that told the truth when it did. So, here, it's yours. It should have been yours from the start. Kai took the book. It was heavy with 60 years of one honest man's defiance. Why are you giving me this? He asked. You work for the council. They'll kill you if they learn you were here. The same way they killed Pell. The same way they killed Wren. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Because I read the glass now, she said. I read it every day. And do you know what I see, my lord, when I read it? I see the truth of what people are. That's what the glass does. It shows what's underneath. And I read your mark in the records Wren left. And I read the marks of the lords who want you caged. And I'll tell you what I've learned reading the deep glass. She met his eyes. Wren died telling the truth. I'd rather be the kind of keeper who carries that forward than the kind who reads the glass and lies about what she sees because the council pays her to. There aren't many of us. People inside the houses who'd rather serve the truth than the quorum. But there are some. More than you'd think. We just can't be seen. So we do what we can in the dark, the way Wren did. She moved to go. If you ever need the glass read true, really read, not the way the council wants it read. I'm in the reading hall every night after the bell. Come as someone else. Bring a candle. A faint, frightened smile. Wren would have wanted his successor to be useful to you. It's the only inheritance of his that matters. And she was gone, into the dark, leaving Kai with 60 years of a dead man's truth in his hands, and the first proof that the 7 houses were not a wall, but a crowd, and that even in a crowd built to fear him, there were people who would rather serve what was true. Kai was quiet for a long time after that. Day had gone to bed. The hall was dark, but for a single lamp, set far from Kai out of the old habit, and the grey banner hung still above the cold hearth, and Kai sat under it and turned the whole shape of the trap over in his mind, looking for the edge of it, the way Wren had taught him to look for the edge of things. Everyone's offered me a leash, he said finally. You said it. Thrace, Vess, Sail, every door is the same door. Survive, but be owned. Belong, but be owned. Even the kindest version ends with my gift in someone else's hand. He looked at the banner, at the black ring, at the words carved beneath the busts of his dead house, 300 years old. We unmake, that we may remake. And the one thing none of them has offered, the thing not one person on this island or across that sea has put on the table, is the possibility that I might be trusted to hold it myself. No, Wren said quietly. They haven't, and they won't. Because the whole history of this place is the story of what happens when an ash holds it alone. She gestured vaguely at the dark, at the sea, at the Remaker's ship riding black on the black water. That's their proof, Kai. That's what's so cruel about it. Every one of them can point across that water and say, look what your house becomes when no one holds the leash. And they're not wrong. That's the trap inside the trap. The thing that wants to own you is using the worst version of you to justify itself. And you can't even argue. Because the worst version of you is real. And it's anchored in the harbour. And it has your grandmother's eyes. Kai stood and walked to the banner and looked up at the word his house had died for. Then I have to be the proof of the other thing, he said. Don't I? Not the leash, not the grave, not the ship. I have to be the proof that an ash can hold it alone and not become that. He turned. Because if I take Thrace's collar to survive, then I've agreed with them. I've agreed that I can't be trusted. And the moment I agree, I've already lost the only thing my house was ever about. He looked very young in the lamplight and very tired, and for the first time since the glass broke, very certain. We unmake, that we may remake. Kaur said the seven only ever remembered the first half. The remakers only ever lived the first half. Everyone here is so afraid of the unmaking that they can't imagine the second part is real. He drew a breath. I'm going to refuse the binding. They'll move on you, Wren said. Lawfully. It's a death sentence, Kai. You know that. I know. He almost smiled. So we'd better make sure that when the council convenes, there's something on the table more frightening to them than me. Something that makes them need me free instead of caged. He looked at her. You said, Sale's saving the truth about the remakers to use against me. What happens if we use it first? What happens if the whole island learns what's across that sea? Not from Sale, when it suits him, but from us, now, on our terms. Slowly, Wren began to smile. The old smile, the sharp one. The one that had come through his window on the very first night. Why, Kai, she said. That's almost Moran of you. Far above, in the White Tower, Lord Sale received a quiet report from a quiet servant, and for the second time that week, he frowned. The exile girl has been in the listening galleries, the servant said. The old Moran ones. We are not certain how much she heard. Sale set down his pen. He had been so careful. He had built the whole architecture of it in silence. The patience, the lesser houses, the debts of Saith, the lovely inevitability of the binding, the vice closing one quiet inch at a time. And he had built it on the assumption that no one on the boys' side could see the whole board. The steward was honest and ordinary. The boy was clever but young, and reacted to what was in front of him. Only the girl was a real player, and the girl was an exile, cut off from the one house that could have given her eyes and ears. Except the girl had been raised by Moran, and Moran's eyes and ears were built into the very walls, and loyalty to a house was a thing you could exile, but not entirely remove. She knows, Sale said. It was not a question. She knows I mean to let them bind him and then take the weapon back. And she will tell him, if she has not already. Shall I have her? Dealt with, my lord. Sale considered it, the cold arithmetic of it, a wet stare, an accident, an inquiry that cleared everyone, and then he set it aside, not from mercy, but from respect. the wary respect of a master player who has just realized the game has another master in it. "No," he said, "no. Killing her now only tells the boy how frightened I am, and teaches him that I can be surprised. Both are gifts I'd rather not give." He picked up his pen again. "Besides, she's about to do something. I can feel it. The clever ones always do something when they think they've seen your plan." He almost smiled. "Let us wait and see what it is, and then we shall know how much they truly understand. The board has another player. Very well. The game is more interesting with two." He returned to his letters, but he did not sleep that night either. And that, though Sale would never have admitted it, not even to the empty room, was itself a kind of victory for the boy in the hall below. He had made Lord Sale stay awake. That was Sigil and Ash, Episode 13, A Lawful Murder. The story continues in Episode 14, The Price of Feeding. Subscribe to follow Kai's story.